The following is a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed during the program are that of SSM Health, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma brands. Welcome in to Taking Care of Business today, featuring SSM Health, Agnesian Health. What is the full name? I always get that wrong.
It's SSM Health.
It's just SSM Health.
SSM Health, and we're the orthopedic part of it, but it's
okay.
SSM is the parent organization.
All right, and you guys have offices in Beaver Dam as well as Waupun.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, you were nice enough to give me some information about your offices, and we'll want to touch on this right away as the show starts. But first, let's touch on who you are, Dr. Bert Callahan.
Correct. I've moved to Beaver Dam in 1996 and practiced orthopedics in this area. Since then, I currently am based primarily in Waupun, but I come to the clinic here in Beaver Dam. But lived 25 years in Beaver Dam and practiced here for many years.
Now, the locations for your clinics here in Beaver Dam and the one up in Waupun are where?
So on Corporate Drive, it's the SSM Health building that's out on Corporate Drive is the main office here in Beaver Dam. That there are a lot of the Dean Health Plan physicians there and subspecialists, and we're there. The physician assistant I work with, Luke Lencher, who is a Beaver Dam native, is there 4 days a week, and then we also work in Waupun, and we do our surgeries in Waupun, and the clinic is attached to the hospital in town.
Now, the one here in Beaver Dam, that's a relatively new building, right? Within the last, 15 years or less?
Yes, 2016.
Okay, so
opens.
yeah, okay, last 10 years basically.
Yeah.
All right, nice building. I think we've done a brat fry out there.
Yeah, that's great. It's a very nice building. It's nice inside. I mean, I think it looks nice, but it's very functional the way it's laid out. There's a pharmacy in there. There's physical and occupational therapy upstairs, and a lot of the specialists who come, like me and others from Madison, a variety of specialists rotate through there and have space. And yeah, it's a very nice building.
Now, when you mention yourself being the doctor there, you're not the only doctor on hand in the orthopedics, correct?
Correct. Dr. Eric Nelson is my colleague, my orthopedic colleague. He works primarily in Waupun, and we both cover Ripon somewhat, but not clinic. But Eric Nelson is based in Waupun primarily.
All right. Now, we know a little bit about your team. I'm going to give out some phone numbers here for anybody who might be interested. These are the numbers for the two locations, starting with Waupun. We've got 920-324-6802.
Correct.
And for Beaver Dam, 920-887-6650. I'm assuming people can go online and learn a little bit as well. Is there a website they can check out?
Yes. Don't know I can tell you what it is, but
okay.
Probably if you just Google SSM Health Waupun or Beaver Dam, that will lead you to the
Google is
site.
Definitely our friend. Now, the topic we have today that we're going to be talking about is not something I've Googled the background of, but you brought in some interesting information. You got some history for me, which is very interesting. But this is a kind of a hot button topic that people are really getting into and talking about. And when they said, Ninja, you're going to be sitting down, you're going to be talking with Dr. Bert Callahan from SSM Health, I thought, okay, what are we going to be talking about? And they said, pickleball. And I had to reread the email 3 times. So why pickleball?
Well, pickleball is very relevant. It's been twice recently named the fastest growing sport in the U.S. It's all ages, from kids playing it through elementary, high school, middle school, to the seniors. You know, you go down to the villages in Florida, you're going to have a big pickleball presence there. But it's a very, and even in Beaver Dam, over in the athletic fields, a lot of those tennis courts were converted to have pickleball courts on them recently too. So it is very relevant to.
I've heard a rumor that they might even be talking about pickleball in the Olympics at some point with how fast it's growing.
Well, based on its rate and other things they have in the Olympics, I don't know why pickleball is not in the Olympics.
Right. At this point, competitive gum chewing is almost in the Olympics.
Right,
so
for sure.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you were able to look up a little bit of the history of pickleball, which is kind of interesting, and you summarized it a little bit for me before the show started. But can you summarize for our listeners and those watching on Daily Dodge TV?
Yes, I was very surprised to learn it is nearly as old as I am. It was started in 1965 in the state of Washington by 3 dads whose kids were complaining there was nothing to do.
We've heard that before.
Yeah, right. And they apparently, the kids challenged the dads, there's nothing to do, and so the dads got together and they had a badminton court and they had ping pong paddles and they kind of worked this out and developed this game. They wanted to be able a game that all ages could play and enjoy. And then the name pickleball, there's a couple of different stories about that, but from what I read, the most credible one is in Washington, where crew is a fairly big sport, like the boys in the boat. I don't know if you watched that at all.
Yeah,
but apparently the non-starters in the boat sometimes are put in a different boat that's referred to as the pickle boat.
Okay.
And so one of the wives of these three men thought since it was kind of patched together portions of different sports of tennis and badminton and racquetball,
right,
that it coined the term pickleball for the game. There was also a rumor that it was named after their family dog, Pickles.
Okay.
But some author of an article I was reading did the research and found that Pickles was actually born 3 years after the game was born. So they think the pickle boat is the genuine story.
Gotcha. So Pickles may have been very well named after the game.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, yes, that's what they did. They thought that's what occurred there. But
that makes sense.
Anyway, I thought fascinating trivia about.
I mean, that's a fascinating history, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about the ingenuity of dads trying to find something for their kids to do.
Right.
Right now it's summer. People want to get outside. They want to do stuff outside, minus when it's raining, which we've had a lot of. And pickleball seems to be one of those things that people are getting more and more into. Obviously, we got the pickleball courts that I'm not sure if they've been finished yet, but are going in here in Beaver Dam. I know there's indoor pickleball in the winter. It's drumming up a lot of interest. You even brought some stats here. Right now, USA Pickleball has 70,000 members in 2023.
Yeah.
9 million players overall in the U.S. Like you said, twice named the fastest growing sport in America. And there are about 50,000 known pickleball courts in the U.S.
Right.
I mean, that's huge, which means a lot of people are playing it. And if people are playing sports, if people are getting athletic, that usually also means that people are getting injured.
Correct, especially when it's people of my vintage. The boomers are out playing, and there is some risk and opportunity for injury, but it is important for us, all ages, but certainly as we age, to be active. I mean, if we want to continue to enjoy life and exist on this planet, we need to be active, and there's some urgency as we get older to stay active, because bad things happen when we're not. And
now I think about obviously, my age, I'm the ripe old age of 40. If I notice that head shake there, you're like, 40. If I were to suddenly wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm going to join a full contact football league at 40. Some people might say I'm crazy. Some people might say I'm a little too old, whatever. But maybe they wouldn't have as much health concern as if I was, let's say, 50, 60. Is this something where people should be worried that they're healthy enough to play? Do they need to consult a doctor before getting in and joining pickleball?
Well, I think if you have any type of lung or heart issues, probably worth at least a MyChart message to your doctor. And as we increase those ages, it's really important for us to see the doctor, at least every year, some sort of regular program, just to because things start to creep up, and you may not realize it, but for most, I think if you've been relatively active, you can transition to pickleball pretty readily without much risk.
Now, you did say that they wanted this to be a sport that was really available to all ages. Yeah. So I'm guessing it's not high impact. Nobody's getting full body tackled or anything on the pickleball courts. I'm assuming the cardio is probably more of it, right? Because it's a lot of moving around.
It's not as big a court as tennis or as fast necessarily as badminton, but there is you are going up and back, and so there is some cardio definitely involved. You supposedly burn 600 calories an hour with pickleball. That's the stat.
I might have to take a pickleball.
Right. And the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes per week of moderate activity.
Right.
And so 75 minutes per week of vigorous activity. So it's a good way because you can spend an hour in the pickleball court pretty easily and get a nice workout, break a sweat, and and have fun doing it. The other piece of it is it's a very social game.
Right.
There's really, I'm sure there are elements that are highly competitive, which I avoid at all costs. But mostly people are there to socialize, and that's been identified in the I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Zones project.
Yeah.
So one of the features of those communities where people live long is there's a very strong social network and being interacting with other people, and that's in pickleball. That's really integral to the sport, is that aspect of it.
That's awesome. And it's nice to know that because this is a sport that I've been seeing and hearing, maybe the stigma is that it's an older generation who's playing it, although it is picking up steam, of course, with the younger generation, that it's a great way for them to socialize and not just be, we play board games at the senior center or something like that. It's a lot more active. It's better for your health. That being said, there are some people who might be a little more prone to injury based on, like you said, health issues maybe. Or age, natural deterioration of the body, things like that.
Right. I mean, one of the ways people get hurt playing pickleball is falling down. So certainly strength, flexibility, coordination, maybe play into that. It also, I think, how you approach the game. When you're first starting, especially, you don't want to in your head. And I think this is probably more an issue for men, perhaps, than women who
we're a little stubborn.
We still think we're that guy we thought we were when we were 18. The older we are, the better I was, sort of thing. And get uber competitive and be diving for ball, you're just going to get hurt that way. I mean, I would say, really recommend kind of easing into it, have fun doing it, and enjoy the game, and work your way up to being super competitive.
No save is worth a broken bone, right?
Correct.
Wonderful. So I'm assuming then that falls are probably the number one reason for injury. What is the most common injury you're seeing? Like, is it just pulled muscles or is it broken bones?
Well, wrist injuries, whether it's falls where, it's a good way to break your wrist to fall on an outstretched hand, but also wrist sprains, strains, overuse, because it's a more of a wristy game than tennis. It's more like racquetball and the movements of the wrist. So that would be the wrist and the elbow. I mean, there is a thing called pickleball elbow, which is akin to tennis elbow.
Okay.
It's the same thing, but
right.
Can't say I've made that diagnosis.
On a smaller scale, maybe.
Yes, yeah. Right. So that's that's kind of warming up, getting into the game, staying fit. I mean, but those are the more common injuries.
Now, I'm assuming, when I think about playing any sport that has a more intense cardio side of things, I think about my friends who still play soccer or who play flag football and do a lot of running around. Things like sprained ankles, leg cramps, things like that. Pulled hamstrings, still a possibility.
Definitely. Ankle sprains and hamstring strains and pulls are also very common.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming then there are things we can do to help prevent some of those injuries from happening.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is your footwear. I mean, it's really, and what's recommended is, because it's similar to the surface of a tennis court, a tennis shoe, a shoe designed for tennis, which is different than a running shoe. A running shoe doesn't have the side stability that a tennis shoe has.
Okay.
And it's a little taller, and so rolling your ankle in a running shoe is easier to do than in a tennis shoe. So that's what's recommended as a shoe. I don't know. There are probably shoes built for pickleball.
I wouldn't doubt it at this point.
But even if you just look for at one of the sporting goods stores a basic tennis shoe.
So if you're like me and you walk around in sandals all the time, maybe not the way to go.
Might not be the way to go.
That is very good to know.
Keep your orthopedic office on speed dial.
There you go. Any other tips you have for people who want to get into pickleball, who want to make sure that they're doing it the healthy way?
Well, I think one of the issues too is warming up before you go, and doing what's recommended before an activity like that is more dynamic stretching, where you're kind of moving and your arms and your legs and even working up. What's one author I was reading recommended having a little bit of a sweat before you actually start to make sure you're warm, and then afterwards is when you do the more static stretching, the sit and reach type of stretching.
Right, let your body bring it back down naturally to that relaxed state. Now, I'm assuming as well the standard advice, you shouldn't have just one physical activity you do to stay physically active. you should diversify, right?
Yes, and I think as we age, it is increasingly important to add strengthening to whatever workout routine. I mean, even backing up prior to that, just being active is so important, and it's hard to do. I feel it as I age personally, but just then with my patients as we get into our 60s and 70s, it's hard to do that, but as for our overall health, both the length of our health as well as our enjoyment of life, staying active, because we all know intuitively our bodies are declining,
Right.
in one way or another, and just trying to keep them fit just so we can do the things we like to do. And strengthening is certainly important, because we talk a lot about bone density and bone loss as we
Right.
age, but parallel to that, and I don't think gets nearly enough discussion, is that we're also losing strength. And so we lose apparently 30% or 10% of our strength every decade past 30.
Oh,
So you're already 10 down.
okay.
I'm 30 down, but
I got to get to the gym, I guess.
all right. But the strength piece of it is so critical for balance, for endurance. We're more prone to injury when we get tired,
Right.
and so all of those things that can lead to injuries on the pickleball court, the strengthening may prevent that, and so it's important to do that.
Now, I know we wouldn't be talking about athletics of any sort or physical activity of any sort or really health of any sort if we didn't touch on the fact of hydration. I'm
Yes.
assuming that's still key here, if not more so.
Very, very critical, especially when it's warm and you're sweating. Absolutely, it's really important to stay hydrated and be hydrated going in. It's not just bringing a water bottle and taking a few sips while you're playing. It's helpful to be hydrated throughout the day, and so you're coming from a point of well hydrated before you start. Yeah, it's really important. I mean, one simple thing, and I think relevant for men as we age, is gout. Gout is really common.
Yeah. My grandfather had it. Yep.
Yeah, and as you get dehydrated, that can cause a gout flare, and anybody who's had it doesn't want it again. And so hydration is key in that setting.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here on the radio and on Daily Dodge Television. Do you have a preferred hydration substance? Are you just a good old-fashioned water person, or do you ever lean into those, extreme hydration drinks?
I like water, but the putting some kind of powder into it tastes better, and I like that, and
Right.
and I usually will lean towards different ones that are geared for running, for athletic ones. The
They have
things
the added electrolytes and other
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, I personally, I usually, if I can, I'll do that. I just taste better, and I'm not. I don't like to use the ones that have a lot of added sugar. I think sugar is one of our culprits in our society, but like the Gatorades, the Power, just the straight off the shelf ones, I think are pretty. It's wise to look at the sugar content, because you can get some ones that do the same thing, taste good, that aren't packed with sugar.
I'll say I think both those brands actually sell a zero sugar powder additive for water.
Yeah.
And I know I use I forget the name of the brand now, but I use one when I'm working out, and I just have one of those big reusable water bottles and just pour it in there and does the trick.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, but if I don't have it handy, I've run out of. Then I'll just use plain water.
Now, let's say somebody's been hydrating properly, they've been doing everything right, they get out there, they're playing pickleball, they do end up getting injured. Maybe it's pickleball elbow or pickle elbow. Maybe it's maybe they do pull something, twist something, or whatever. How do you treat those injuries? Is it just like everything else, or is there things that people can do at home?
Yeah, I think it depends on how the initial symptoms are. I mean,
Okay.
if it's very dramatic, you hear a snap and you have lots of swelling and you can't walk on your ankle, you probably ought to come in and have an X-ray. Make sure you don't have a fracture or your wrists. But for things that are more minor than that, certainly ice initially is a good idea. And give it a couple of days and see how it feels. If you have a lot of swelling or you have a lot of bruising, bruising usually indicates you have a fracture. I mean, an ankle, a bad ankle sprain and an ankle fracture feel very similar. But if it goes, if your symptoms linger and the swelling continues, for more than a couple of days, it's probably worth seeking some medical attention.
And not seeking attention for something that's a fracture, especially in critical joints like our ankles, wrists, things like that we use a lot, that can cause problems once it's healed down the road if you don't get it looked at, right?
Right. If it's out of position, and you really can only tell that with an X-ray. So I don't know. I mean, that's what I do for a living, but I think it's worthwhile because any treatment that's maybe needed is easier and more effective when done early.
And there's a lot of little bones in there that can get damaged.
Yep. Certainly down into the middle part of the foot. I mean, and those are bad injuries. Injuries to the foot. I think our feet really take a beating, and when you get an injury, then it can limit you for quite a while.
So let's recap on this. We need proper hydration. That's one. We talked about proper footwear. You said tennis shoes, like you'd wear on a tennis court. Good way
Correct.
to go. I'm assuming those would also work if you're playing on a standard gym floor, if you're playing indoor pickleball. I'm assuming, the rest of your attire should probably be something you'd wear for athletics, something that's not going to keep you too hot, but, keep you, supported and all that other fun stuff. And then it sounds like stretching before, stretching after, and really proper warm-up is going to be a key.
Right.
And if all else fails and you don't do any of these things and you get injured, remind everybody, who do they go see when those injuries kick in?
Call us at the orthopedic clinic at SSM, either in Waupun or Beaver Dam. We'll fix you up.
Wonderful. And I want to take a few moments before we get to the end of the show here. We're getting close to the end, just to talk about you and the team you've got over there. Obviously, you introduced yourself earlier in the show. You said you've been in the area since 1996, did you say?
96, right.
So quite a while. What drew you to Beaver Dam? Or to this area, I should say.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, not in Wisconsin. My wife and I both. We kind of liked colder weather, and we knew we wanted to be in the upper Midwest. And I had two friends when we were in the Army together who we ended up coming to Beaver Dam at nearly the same time. Steve Powell's in 94, Bob Coe came in 95, and I came in 96.
Okay.
And so it was really, I was the last of the three. I came to join those two guys.
Right. Now, I'm always interested when people say, I'm from the Midwest, but they don't say what state specifically. So what state specifically?
I am a Packers fan.
Okay, well, that's a good way to start.
Illinois.
I had a feeling. I've always noticed that when people say they're from the Midwest, but they don't say what state, usually that's the one, especially if they're living in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you're now officially one of ours, so you're good. And I appreciate you being a Packers fan. I'm assuming you happy with the deal that just got announced with Love, the contract extension.
Yes, I mean, I think that would have been. It seems like they could have done that before training camp got started, and they knew they had to do it.
Yeah.
But he certainly seems like the real deal. So I'm glad they've locked him up, and as well as the rest of the team. I mean, I think the team looks really. I think a reason to be very optimistic.
I agree. And I don't suppose they allow for local orthopedic doctors to sit sidelines and help out. They've got their own team for all of that. But we do know if any of them were in the Beaver Dam area and were playing pickleball and needed to see somebody for an injury while they're here, they could definitely come see you guys.
I'd be their man. I could take care of that for them.
Wonderful. Give me a little more information about Luke. You said Luke Lencher, right?
Yeah, so Luke Lencher and my other PA I work closely with, Joe Heckenkamp.
Right.
Both of those guys worked with me in Beaver Dam. Joe started in 2006 with us, so I've worked with Joe for 18 years.
Okay.
Luke in 2013 came from Chicago back. He's a Beaver Dam native, but he worked at a very busy orthopedic clinic in the Chicago area. So I've been with both of those guys a long time. People will probably know Luke from his father had a chiropractic clinic in Beaver Dam for many years. Now
Okay.
two of his brothers. He's son number one of 5 Lencher boys.
All right.
And sons 2 and 4 are the current chiropractors in Beaver Dam. Great family, great people, and Luke is very experienced, and Joe too. And Luke sees patients out of the Beaver Dam office, and those guys can do and see anything that I can in the clinic, and then they alternate helping me in the operating room in Waupun.
Now, how often do you find yourself having to operate in today's day and age? Is it more common than people realize?
Well, I mean, it's very common. I spend all day Monday, nearly all day Thursday, and every other Tuesday in the operating room.
Now, are these like major operations, or they tend to be like little minor things? Like, what counts as a major or minor operation when it comes to orthopedics?
Well, I mean, we take everything as major, as serious,
Okay.
but I mean,
Right.
it's not a minor thing to have an operation, but I know what you mean. I mean, the smaller things like carpal tunnel, hand procedures, those typically are on Thursday, but a big part of what we do is knee and hip replacement, knee, hip, and shoulder replacement, and those are done mostly on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I think if I'm lucky enough to do future programs, we'll spend more time, because I spend all my day talking to people and saying the same thing about those things, and they're both very common, and the numbers of knee and hip replacement and shoulder replacements are just increasing every year, and projected to increase through 2030.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to save that for another episode and get you back on to talk about it, because the whole idea of replacing joints and how that works and how it continues to then function in your body has always been a fascinating thing for me. So I'd love to go ahead and continue that conversation with you. We do want to remind everybody that you do have a team in Waupun as well. Eric Nelson there, Dr. Nelson, as well as his nurse practitioner, Andrea Smits. If they want to get a hold of you guys, again, the number is 920-324-6802 in Waupun, and then 920-887-6650 in Beaver Dam. And they can find you over on Corporate Drive here in Beaver Dam, and then attached to the hospital there in Waupun. Did I get all that right?
You did.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Any final words for our soon-to-be pickleball experts out there who are going to get out there and start playing?
Well, it's a fun game. Just enjoy it. Have a good social time doing it. Don't get too competitive and work your way into it. But just in general, I would say the biggest single thing people can do is to be active, and especially the older we get, stay active. Find something that you like that you can do. I mean, it's not a one size fits all, and some degree of strength training is important if you can add that into your program.
Wonderful. And do you play?
I have played. Yes.
Okay. So if you see Dr. Callahan out there, by all means, challenge him to a game. But just know he's going to make sure that you are well hydrated and stretched and did all that stuff beforehand, because it's got to be a fair game. No getting overly competitive.
That's right.
That's right. I want to thank you.
Don't beat me too bad.
I want to thank you for stopping in, taking the time to talk with us today on something that I thought was going to be kind of a weird topic, but really actually came out to be a really good one and very informative. I'm so glad to hear about this stuff, and now I kind of want to give pickleball a try a little bit more, since it seems to be a little bit cooler than I was initially picturing. It's not just for the senior citizens, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I was resistant for a while because I thought I was assenting to the fact that I'm officially old now, but
Right.
But yet kids do it in school, so it covers all ages.
Well, there you go, and that means my kids are going to want to challenge me as soon as I start playing, and I got to make sure I can beat them.
You
when I do.
better get started.
Yeah, we can't lose to the kids. That's not a dad
take
way
some
to
lessons
be.
on the side, so you
That's a good idea. Sherry Sackett, if you're listening, you're going to give me lessons. So that being said, again, thank you, Dr. Callahan, for coming on today. Dr. Burt Callahan with SSM Health, here from the orthopedic surgery department, I guess would be the way to say it.
Yeah.
And this has been Taking Care of Business. The advice and opinions expressed during this show have been that of SSM Health, not necessarily Good Karma Brands or WBEV.